Welcome, brave listeners, to the Next Level podcast, the podcast that will push your business to the next level. I'm very glad to be here to record the third episode for this podcast, and I can be more than happy to share with Katarina. Thanks so much for being here, Katarina.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Beautiful. And today we have a special guest. I'm gonna introduce you, and then I will let you say a couple of words, okay? So we have here today with the guest is someone who has mastered the art of networking for real business growth. Peter Hawkins is an award winner, international entrepreneur, mentor, and the co-chair of the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce. He's also the co-owner of MELLOHAWK Logistic, a global freight forward company which offers in Canada, US, Brazil, and worldwide. And beyond his impressive titles, Peter is passionate about helping entrepreneurs and professionals build meaningful connections that leads to measurable success. Thank you so much for being here, Peter.
Thank you, Bruno. I'm delighted to be here. Katarina, I'm delighted to be here with you as well. It's funny when you say I'm delighted to support entrepreneurs achieve measurable success. I want to see everybody succeed. I'm a big believer, and let's find a way to find an opportunity for everyone to succeed and make some money and do business and be happy. So if that is your goal, then let's talk.
Beautiful, beautiful. So to start this podcast, I will. So if you want to watch this podcast, you're going to see on the thumbnail, on the title, but we're going to talk about networking and what networking really means and why most of people get it wrong. Like about networking. Let's discuss about that. Let's dive into, and I'm going to start with the first questions, Peter. Let's start from the beginning. In your perception, what's the definition of networking?
Well, for me, and I think it's the definition that matters, is networking is making meaningful connections. Full stop. So if I find there's many people who just use online platforms to connect. All they're doing is creating a list. That's not a network. A network has to be meaningful. You have to make a connection by sharing stories, making sure that they know who you are and you know who they are. So there are plenty of opportunities for networking. You have networking brunches and networking lunches and networking evening events and online networking, but it doesn't work until you actually have a conversation and that conversation yields a step moving forward.
Wonderful. One thing that I would like to start, thank you for the definition, but let's start with some misconceptions about networking, because right now we are living the digital world, but everyone, it's follow everybody. But honestly, I'm used to go in some events and networking. I'm still like having people talking to me like a cold call, like, hey, I'm a person, okay, I'm not interested in you, next person. And I think
the worst,
right? And like there's some misconceptions about networking, so let's start with that. Like can you just give me what is not networking?
Well, a lot of people think networking is just showing up, and I always say if you haven't talked to everybody in the room, then you have failed. I also say if you have shown up with a colleague and you're only talking to them, you have failed. Networking is talking to everybody else, but it's also the second question. So when you shake the hand and say, I'm so-and-so and I do this and who are you, listen to their answer, and then you build on whatever has been said. Don't just be there spouting off whatever your particular pitch is. And it is really important too to understand that whoever you're talking to may not be interested, so there might be something else you can talk about because they may know ultimately someone who is interested. Now that's the in-person thing, but of course we live in the digital world. Mm-hmm. And in the digital world we have another issue, and that is COVID changed it. COVID removed the gatekeeper. So from now on, you don't have to go through somebody who's preventing you from speaking to the decision maker. Now you can use LinkedIn, you can use any other tool you want to identify that person you want to talk to and reach out directly to that person. And I have a lot of strategies for people to do that kind of thing. But what I just want to make sure is that when you go in, you understand that your pitch is not to sell yourself right away. It is to introduce yourself and then to listen and make a real connection. It's funny, Katarina and I just met. And we were outside talking and hello, how are you? All this kind of stuff. But we both asked each other questions and we listened to the answers. And that made the conversation go into a whole new direction. But that new direction may not be business. It might be business. But the fact is, we are talking and we are listening. That is what networking is.
Beautiful.
One other myth that I think a lot of people have about networking is that they have to be extroverts. Want to talk about that?
You don't have to at all. You don't have to at all. I hate extroverts. They get in my way. I am the guy I'm loud and funny. I don't want to hear you being loud and funny. I want you to listen to me and ask thoughtful questions. But I do want you to speak up. That's for sure. So it's funny when if you know your material and you're talking one-to-one to somebody, that's not an introvert-extrovert situation. That's a situation of two people communicating. Yeah. You're not on stage speaking to the world. Okay, maybe that's not your thing at all. But a one-to-one conversation where you are communicating clearly, that's all you need. And I always say the first thing, when you say your name, make sure you're saying it like a greeting. Make sure I hear it. Because if I have to ask your name twice, I actually am not going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay? Canadians are very, very polite and we will nod and smile, but we're not helpful. We don't tell you, I didn't get your name. But if I didn't get your name, I can't refer you.
Yeah.
All right.
And can you talk about, that's actually an interesting point because there's times where I am Canadian, but I do ask questions. And often I'll say, if it's a name I haven't heard before or I didn't quite catch it, I'll say, how do you spell that or whatever. And some people sort of think that I'm either making, like they feel defensive sometimes. And to me, it's actually like a sign of respect to ask questions. So can you just talk a little bit more about how and why we can clarify?
Sure. Well, first of all, I find it hard to believe somebody would be offended if you said, spell your name.
They're not offended, but they're just sort of a little, they don't, unsure. Let's call it unsure.
Okay, and maybe, and being unsure is perfectly legit.
Yes.
I'll tell you something funny. I had a candidate who I was trying to help find a job. And when I saw her LinkedIn profile first, her first name was 4 O's, and I thought it was a typo. And when I finally talked to her, I said, "What is going on there? Is it? Did you just fall asleep on the keyboard?" And dum, 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 dum? And she said, "No, my name is oh." And I thought, "Oh, I'd never heard that name before." And I said, "How many people call you?" She said, "No one." And I said, "I believe that your family and your tradition has given you a beautiful name, but unfortunately, it is an obstacle for you getting a job."
Yeah.
I said, "Do they call you a nickname?" And she goes, "Everybody calls me Oprah." I said, "Well, then call yourself Oprah, because that'll get you in. We'll remember you right away. Suddenly you have a trademark. And then when you get the role, then you correct them and say, by the way, this is my real name."
Yeah.
Or go by Oprah if you prefer that. I don't want people to change their names, okay? I just want them to be pronounceable and understandable.
Yeah.
And if you have a name that's complicated,
Yeah.
please don't mutter it.
Yeah.
Please say it loudly and clearly.
Yeah.
My name is Peter, but I say Peter. I make sure they get it. And, I think that's the same thing. But Katarina, are you Katarina or are you Katarina or are you Kat? How do you call yourself?
All three.
All three.
The only thing I don't answer to is Kathy.
Kathy, okay.
Because she had a nicer dress in elementary school than I did.
Oh, those Kathys are the worst, aren't they? I tell you.
Okay. Yeah. So amazing. And that was an obstacle. Like that. When I was, I'm gonna share that. I was calling Kat as a caddy lots of times. I say, "Bruno, could you please? You can call me Katarina. You can call me, but like the animal cat. Call me Cat." Oh, it makes my life so easy.
But you were calling her Caddy, were you?
Caddy.
Yeah,
Caddy.
Okay, that has a totally different meaning.
Well,
just to let
Katie,
you know.
he said Katie.
Oh, Katie. Katie. All right, Katie.
Katie. And
now it's Cat.
I think Caddy is pretty funny. Actually.
Yeah.
No,
If
Cat.
you know
Now
me,
it's
it
Cat.
is.
That's Cat. Beautiful. So back to the networking thing. I understand if you're willing to, because events you have to plan, right? So you have to plan ahead. So maybe we have an event at 1 month, and I'm going to start to plan. So let's talk about to people that are right in the situations that they have an event coming in and they have to be prepared to do networking. Is there any preparation or steps like, okay, I have to think in those steps to when I reach the day, I can be laser focused on that target and achieve everything that I plan, or something like that.
Oh, it's interesting because when you said laser focused, I think you actually just created the situation that you started talking about at the very beginning, when people are just sort of checking off the boxes and saying, no, can't use you, can't use you, and all that stuff. When you are going to a networking event, or if you're getting ready to network, you have to understand why. Okay. Yeah. Are you looking for a new job? Are you looking for sales leads? Are you looking for opportunities? Are you looking for connections to build your business? And everybody is too busy working on their business to build a business outside, but you really have to understand what it is you're offering. So if you're looking for a job, make sure you know what you are. You know, I am a blank blank, and I am looking for blank blank. Okay, make it very clear, and reduce it as much as you can to 10 words. If you are looking for sales opportunities and looking for making connections there, what does your company do? I've talked to many entrepreneurs who tell me something about their company that they love. I spoke to this one woman who was just amazing, and I said, so tell me about your company. And she goes, I love lithium. And I thought, what the hell are you talking about? And I said, okay, I like lithium too. And it took me a half an hour to realize she was talking about taking used car batteries and repurposing them for the house.
No.
Now, I just pitched it. Okay. Now, and she couldn't get to that because she was so deeply inside her company that she was struggling. So I think it's very important to practice, and you're going to practice and then ask them what they heard. Because what you think you're saying and the message you think you are giving is not the one they are receiving. And what you want is those friends who will be honest with you. You know, I think you're saying this. So, Katarina, what do you do? No, tell me.
I'm laughing because I don't have an answer for you, and this is what I help people do.
Okay, you help people clarify what they do.
It's actually
you
what
kind of answer.
What I help people do is develop foresight so that they can understand how and why things work the way that they do in their environment. And it's usually focused on people who are creating change.
And creating change, are we talking business or are we talking any kind of change?
Focused on business-related change that has an ESG component to it most of the time.
Okay, ESG was like the 30th word you said.
Yes.
And so, in fact, you're in the ESG market creating change and identifying ways. Probably you're repeating back to them what they're already telling you, but they just don't get it.
Yeah.
I think that there's probably a big element there.
Yeah.
Everything you said is correct, but it is almost too far removed from somebody seeing themselves in that story. Okay, so and so when I'm trying to help people network, I'm always saying, what is that story?
Yeah.
Okay, because just the list of just the check in the boxes is not real. AI program can do that.
Yeah.
What you need to do is show that you're a human being. And it's funny because the conversation we had off camera was a very insightful conversation. And the conversation we're having now is, And so, you know, I
get the deer in the headlights?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And, you know, and I like deer just as well as everybody else, so not to worry. Okay, Bruno, hang on. What do you do?
I know. Sorry, I'm going to answer. I promise I'm going to answer that. But the thing is, that's what happened in networks events. Because like when they have spotlights on them and they're about to pitch themselves, they froze.
Yeah.
Because now there's the tension in the air because I have the opportunity. I understand that, but that's why like I'm really like wants to bring that networking. It's something that you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's evolutionary too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have like to actively understand your goals. If I understand what you're saying, you have to understand your goals when to be there. You have to understand how to pitch yourself in 10 words so it can be easily connected with that person so both can not just waste times, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to answer that later.
When I was working with the high-tech entrepreneurs, which you don't know, I built an accelerator program that ran for 4 years, and I worked with angel investors and a few VCs and stuff for about 10 years. And in that process of helping entrepreneurs to pitch themselves, and that's why I'm laughing so hard when you ask me, what do I do, is like, let me ask the questions. Don't make me answer.
But what I love about the fact that now you just told me how important you are to talk to. Anybody who's trying to get into that world and develop that world, they should be talking to you.
Yeah. So. And what I used to tell people is, you know, the goal is in that introductory statement that, you know, very brief, concise, statement of here's what I do. If you do it in a way and you have to practice it and develop it and figure out how do you present it to different people in different contexts, because the way that you would present it to somebody in a social situation versus a business situation will be a little bit different. Yeah. And the goal is to invite the person that you're speaking to say, oh, that's interesting, tell me more. Right. And every time you give an answer, then you're given permission through the questions to answer a little bit better. And so it's a real skill set. It's really, I'm sort of back at playing tennis again, and it's like just having to learn the skill set. You know, you have to repeat and practice and reflect and everything else. And honing your pitch or honing your introduction and honing sort of the beginnings of those conversations is a real skill set.
But do you know what? You don't have to give everything in that first line.
Yeah.
That's why I say 10 words.
Just
10
curiosity.
Words, just the teaser. Because as you just said, and I totally agree with you, that you get invited to explain more and to fine tune it.
Yeah.
So don't waste that introductory phrase on, I provide solutions to whatever. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm just kill me now.
Yeah.
And I really want to know what you do.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a way to reduce friction and cause oil to go through a pipe faster. Oh, okay. That's
actually really interesting.
Yeah. See, all of a sudden it's neat. And you didn't use the word solution anywhere.
Yeah.
I help people create the message that they want to give as opposed to what they think they're giving. Okay, and so it is funny because I also don't mind being silly and being foolish and all that kind of stuff because
makes
go
life
ahead.
Better.
You judge me, go ahead. What I want to do and what I want to see is everybody succeed, and so I don't mind saying.
And joy is part of that.
Yeah, joy is part of that, but also being
clear,
criticizing kindly.
Oh,
Constructively, and saying, do you know what? The message you're sending is actually the wrong message. Can you do this? Have you thought about this? And I try to be kind. I try to be generous. Sometimes I'm thinking, but I am trying to be, kind when I have these conversations. And Canadians, I will tell you, a big problem with Canadians is our indirect speech and our inability to say no, our inability to give criticism and to avoid conflict has been a hassle, because I always say to people too, if you have that conversation and they say, I am so glad you came in, I really liked you, thank you, that's a no. That was a no. And I talk to people all the time, I've talked to this company and they're interested in my solution and all that kind of stuff, and I'm thinking, no, they are not. That's it. They've forgotten you already. And so it is an opportunity for them to say then, how could I have made this better? And get a conversation going. Networking is a two-way street. It is a conversation.
Wonderful you say about I love it, and because the thing is, the networking event, it's just one night or it's just that time. It didn't end there.
It doesn't end there,
right? So it's ongoing process, and this is what I would like to ask, and then just to ask you these questions about how important is the following up, right? Because most of people say, it's a good night. Over, like game over.
It's crazy. People get the business cards and collect the cards and then don't do anything with those cards. It is really important. There's sort of two elements that must happen. For a good networking event, the people hosting the networking event need to be ambassadors or concierges. What they need to do is grab each person and do that introduction. Nobody stands alone. You grab, so in all the events that I host, I always have about a dozen people who we have coached to go, if you see anybody, what do you do? Great, I want you to meet this person and have that conversation. And I always say, you have failed unless you have talked to everybody in the room, okay? Now, on the other hand, you have talked to everybody in the room, you're walking out, you've got some business cards, what do? I actually do a little trick. On the business cards that I think I can actually move forward on, I tear them. And so I have a little tear to remind me who that is, okay? And I do respond to everybody, great to see you, it's so nice to meet you, can we connect on LinkedIn? I have a little look at their LinkedIn, and then on the ones that I really have something meaningful, I will send them a note with some more information. I don't send everything. I don't send the deck or anything like that. I just send more intriguing information and something complimentary. Thank you so much. It was great talking to you. Really enjoyed it. Hope we can continue this conversation. Because we are bad boyfriends. We show up, we talk fast, we have a good time, and then we don't call. Okay? We got to call. And that means you do have to follow up, and you have to follow. Exactly. In my case too. And you do have to follow up, okay? You have to follow up. and the next day is when you follow up. When I take trade missions and we go around the world and the Canadian companies say, oh, we had a great conversation and I'm going to send them some information in 6 months. Italy is already there selling, and by the time we're Canadians are sending the information.
And 6 months, they don't even remember who you are.
Yeah, they don't remember
6
who you are.
weeks, they don't remember.
They bought the product. 6 days, they don't remember.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, you've got to follow up right away, which means when you're tired and you're home, you're still going to do it.
Yeah.
What's that going to do? It's going to impress them.
Yeah.
That person followed up.
And how do you follow up? What are there's different ways of following up. There's ways of following up if you think somebody's a hot lead and they really are in a position where they're ready to buy your product. There are people who you think might be a customer in the future or a client in the future. Could be a referral source, or it could just be an interesting person that who knows where that might go in 2 years, 3 years. They're worth staying in touch with. How do you deal with those different?
Well, in fact, I treat them almost all the same way because every one of them has value.
Yes.
Okay, every one of them has value. When somebody reaches out to me to connect, I look and see, is that person just going to sell me life insurance? Okay, because I get the same phrasing. And also, I am careful with my connections on LinkedIn, for instance, that I have some kind of reason to connect with everybody on LinkedIn. Any totally random, somebody is from a country that I have no dealings with who is trying to sell me something, I don't even accept, I just ignore. I have every right to ignore. It's my LinkedIn. But for everyone else, I accept and I write a note. Okay, when I am reaching out to people, and so I will say, great to. So, for instance, it was somebody I just found very interesting. Great to talk to you. Happy to refer you to something that you if you see somewhere I might be valuable. Feel free to look at my friend list, my contact list. If there's somebody you want to meet, I can make an introduction for you. Okay, so I have now taken an action, a step forward, to
and an offer, generous,
and an offer,
generous offer,
an offer, and an easy offer for me too, because I know my list. Okay, and then on the other side of that, if there is somebody who might be a hot lead, is there a chance, can we have another conversation? People ask me for coffee chats all the time. I don't have time for any of them. But what I do say is, can you get 20 other people and we'll do a group Zoom?
Oh, nice.
Okay, and even 5 other people and I'll do a group Zoom.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I have no extra time at all. And since I don't have any extra time, they go, well, you have to eat. Yes, I'm already eating with 10 other people. And so if you want something meaningful, and I'm happy to share it, I've got the knowledge that I'm willing to share, but I've got to do it in a group. And so, well, I don't want to give my private information. I said, well, good luck, and let me know when you can give your private information. And I try, and that's it. I don't have time to waste. My time is super valuable.
Yeah.
That said, with all of these people, the follow-up has to be complete. So you have to go ahead and reach out to everybody that you get a card from. And if you don't get a card, then you do the LinkedIn thing too. Make sure you're up on all the tech, okay? Because you now know that you can just press the 2 phones together and get everything. And so do it. And the other thing I do too is I'll take the selfies with everybody. This is me. This is you. Can I get a selfie? And I'll even make the joke. I want a selfie so when I send you a note, you know who the hell you were talking to. And they all laugh. They all do it. When Carney picked his cabinet, I had selfies with half the ministers that I posted. Okay, and I'm writing my notes to them. Congratulations, I want this, and this is me. So it's just you make the connections, you take advantage of it. Don't be embarrassed, because this is a different world. This is not the world that I grew up in, where somebody had to introduce me.
Yes.
Okay, you introduce yourself.
I know you're gonna laugh. One thing that I'm doing, like back at the times I was doing code calls, is can you ask me one weird questions before I go? Yeah, sure. What's your favorite pizza topping? What? Oh, it's cheese. Okay, so now next time you're gonna remember me, because say, that's. I know that's
Bruno,
not a selfie.
Let me hold your hand. Don't do that anymore. Okay, seriously. If somebody said that to me, I would say, shoot me now.
I know.
Because you're going to become the cheese guy. All right?
No, cheese guy.
Just but the salient thing is so I first met Bruno when he had a technology about keeping retainers inside the mouth.
Yep.
And it was such a cool thing that I remembered that from day one. I remembered the pitch. I remember being intrigued by it.
Yep.
And so it is so interesting, because you're already interesting.
Yes.
All right? And you are too. So with that in mind, I don't think you need the gimmicks.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think you need things to be real.
And what are the knowing how people recognize you? So Brazilian dentist, right?
Yeah.
That's how I remember you when we first met. Yeah. So.
And exactly, who has evolved to a Brazilian entrepreneur, who's involved to Brazilian well, actually Brazilian Canadian mentor.
Yeah.
Okay, so the evolution has happened fully as it should be. It's in my company. I'm the only Canadian-born person. Everybody else is from somewhere else.
Nice.
And I asked them how they got there, and they had horror stories. Everybody had a terrible, terrible story.
Wow.
And I decided right then and there that as I heard these stories, that nobody needs to have a terrible story. So, and then I discovered women re-entering the workforce after they've had children. Terrible stories. Why? No network. Newcomers. Terrible stories. Why? No network. New grads. Why? No network. So I am trying to show everybody how to have a network. So, some real tips. LinkedIn. Have a complete LinkedIn profile. In business, LinkedIn is your business profile. Not Instagram, not Facebook, not WhatsApp, nothing else. It is your professional profile.
You don't exist if you don't have a good LinkedIn profile.
Exactly. And make sure it's complete. Use the background image. Don't spend any money on it. You don't need to spend any money at all, but you do have to spend 2 hours on it.
Yeah.
Background image. Go ahead and Google LinkedIn banner background images, or if you see one you like on somebody else's, steal theirs. No problem.
We have ChatGPT today.
Or ChatGPT endlessly. Head and shoulders shot of you with a warm, welcoming smile. Okay, wearing a jacket. Executives wear jacket. Rich people wear jackets. Okay, shirt sleeves. You're a worker. Okay, tank top. You're a hooker. Okay, I want jackets. Then, on top of that, then your name, first name, last name. If you have any advanced degrees, I want it on there. Like I really want it completely filled out. And remember, we're judging the book by its cover. So this is all stuff you can do super easily. And then with that, you have 260 characters that you can use for your headline. Put in keywords; those are searchable keywords. If you are an engineer, give me some specific degree and technique and stuff like that you have in there. Your essay is 2,500 characters that you can do. That's a lot. Your opening line is your pitch. I am a blank with X number of years experience, and I am studying at Centennial College or something like that. That's what it is. The first part is all about your skills. The second part is about is in point form, and it is about anything I can just catch with my eye very quickly. That's what you're trying to make it easy for the reader. And the last thing is your hopes and your dreams. Okay. Any volunteerism goes in there. Any of your survival jobs goes in there. You have that done. Once you have that, how do you connect with people?
Can I just interrupt there for a second? With the students that I was teaching, a lot of the students were sort of career professionals, early career professionals who are coming to Canada. This is when I was as a professor. And a lot of students were really embarrassed about their entry-level jobs that they kind of had to get because they had professional experience at home in a lot of cases. And for me, what I said to them was, we have this thing in Canada where you need to get Canadian experience. Whether it's completely relevant or not, we have to put that argument aside. And get promoted. Demonstrate what you've learned. Don't treat it like just a job. Treat it like a good training ground, like going to school, right? So I think a lot of people don't understand how these entry-level jobs or early stage jobs can actually really demonstrate who you are as a person.
Oh, you are so right. And the entry-level job, the survival job, Tim Hortons, McDonald's, fast food, cleaning, guard, any of those things, security, what they show is two things. They show you're willing to work. Okay, I love that. And in fact, I find it much easier with women than men because women don't have an ego. Okay, they have to work, they work. The second thing is skills. If you work at Tim Hortons, for instance, and you do cash and you do some baking and you do customer service, you are doing your financing, you are doing schedulings, you're a manager, you are doing customer service, you're doing all those things, and all those things are showing me that I don't have to teach you how to handle customers. I don't have to teach you fiscal responsibility. You're already showing me that you work, because my big doubt when they say no Canadian experience, which I hate, as you probably know, I believe that's ridiculous.
I've lived in 6 countries.
Exactly.
I don't have a lot of patience for that.
However, what the real question is, when they're asking that, you don't have any Canadian experience, and they already know from your resume that you don't, but they're asking, are you going to behave in the office the way I expect?
Yeah.
Are you going to treat women well? Are you going to understand that we live in a diverse culture, and everything is
everybody deserves respect,
right? Or are they revealing that they are racist because you're not like me? And all of those things are on the table.
Yes.
And what you are showing with your survival job is you are beating that because you have the transferable skills that you've picked up.
Yeah.
And by talking about that in your essay and getting help, using ChatGPT, getting help from somebody who is writing clear, concise English, that is super important to do. And in addition to all of that, how do you actually make the connections? You make the connections by identifying on LinkedIn who is doing the job you want that you are qualified to do. Okay? Who is doing the job you want that you are qualified to do. Then whoever's doing that job, go ahead and start commenting on their posts. Thoughtfully, always positively. And if they don't post, find somebody else. Keep finding somebody else. So what you're going to do is look up the company you want to work for and then look under people, not jobs. Find the person who's doing the job you want to do. Comment thoughtfully on their posts. If they respond, then you can press connect and you ask for advice. You're not firing off your resume. You're asking for your advice. Everybody likes to be asked for advice.
Introduce and say, this is what stands out about you. Demonstrate that you really paid attention to their LinkedIn page, to what they're commenting on, to what they're writing about, right? And basically saying, here's why I'm approaching you, and be flattering about it.
Yes,
not falsely, but
I'll take any kind of flattery.
It's okay.
But what else I want to point out though, when you're making that connection request. It's not a cold connection. It's a warm connection. You've already had a conversation.
Yeah.
And so I admire people who understand what how the platform works.
Yeah.
And happy to have that conversation, happy to help them through. Now, when somebody does it badly, I write them a note. But to be honest, so many people do it badly that I can cut and paste my note to them.
Yeah.
Okay? I cut and paste and say, look at this paragraph. I wrote it in 2019. It applies to you.
Yeah.
And makes a big difference because go ahead,
Sorry,
please.
Can I just to translate this a little bit as well? So I think this information is really important, not just for people who are new to Canada, but also most Canadians. Most Canadians have never really learned how to network properly, and because of the Next Level Business Academy that you're running, there's a lot of people who are also in business situations and trying to figure out how to do this, and this advice applies to them as well, right? They may not necessarily be looking for the next job, but what they should be looking for in terms of networking is not just customers, but also referral sources. People who, partners, allies, anybody who can help them in different ways, everything from understanding how the market is shifting. And it doesn't have to be their direct market. It could be a market upstream or downstream from them. It could be a range of things, right? So this outreach that you're talking about is completely transferable to almost every situation.
Well, remember that LinkedIn can only do one of two things. It can find you a job or push an agenda. So if you're looking for a job, that's one strategy.
Yeah.
If you're pushing an agenda, promoting your company, trying to build business leads and all that stuff, that's the other thing. And make sure your LinkedIn profile is all about that.
Yeah.
Okay? And if it's all about that, then you can absolutely do it. And again, people in business are busy, and especially the solo entrepreneur is struggling already. I've got to do this, I've got to do this. I'm trying to promote my company. I'm trying to sell something. The world is changing. What am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The fact is, you can still find an hour, 9 o'clock at night, to tweak your LinkedIn to make that profile a little bit more meaningful and to scan and pick up a couple other people. And you can do it on your phone, you can do it on the can, you can do whatever you want to do and identify some people and then sell it. There's always time.
And sometimes those quick hits are the most effective because then you're kind of fresh every time you're doing it. Yeah. As opposed to if you're doing it for an hour of scrolling, you're kind of brain dead by the time.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Let me be modern and say brain rot.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I think, to be honest, we talk about now working in person and now working digital, because that's a perfect tips and ways to do networking in the proper way digitally. Because the thing is, I put some notes here. Networking, it's about giving too. It's not just
it's both ways. Yeah.
Both ways, right? It's not and I love that you can add value to people in networking sessions as well. It's not just like when you say talk with everyone in the room, you may not have all the leads they're respecting, but if you had a chance to add value to someone, I'm not saying not even for business, I'm saying about life. I was like, why not? So you're gonna be memorable. You're gonna have something in the air. I don't know. It's just
All correct. I think that's all real advice and helpful advice. Let's do a little role play. Okay.
Oh no.
No, we're at a LinkedIn. Oh no, we're at a networking session. Okay. And so, hi, I'm Peter Hawkins, and I'm a mentor to newcomers. And so, who are you?
Hi, I'm Katerina, and I help people develop foresight for their businesses.
Oh my goodness. So, what do you want to get out of this event? Why are you here?
Looking to meet interesting people, see how people are thinking, see what they're concerned about, see how I can help them to maybe see the future a little bit better.
How long does it take you to figure out if that person is worth pursuing?
Very good question. In my situation, it really is how curious are they about anything. If they demonstrate any curiosity, they're probably somebody I can work with.
Do you work with people who are younger, older? Like, what status in life do they need to be in?
Right now, I am working with millennials and sort of older millennials and young Gen X's.
Really?
That seems to be sort of age range, and really where the definition of the types of clients that I seem best suited for are people who are mid-career, so early mid-career all the way through to late career, but they're not close to retirement, and they really are thinking about what's their legacy going to be in their career. Yeah, how do they really make an impact and change the world?
Kat, am I an older millennial?
Yeah. I would call you a young Gen.
A young Gen. I'm kind of terrified.
Oh my God, guys.
But what I wanted to get out here is a conversation back and forth. It was not at all about what can you do for me and what can I do for you. It was very much about getting engaged back and forth. Although you should
And
ask
being
some more
curious. I should have asked. And being curious. But what you were doing is really being curious about and asking clarifying questions, which was really nice.
Yeah. But it's so interesting because now I even have a better feel for what you do.
Exactly.
And that connection is more valuable too.
Yeah, and then me replying with the questions.
Yeah.
Once I sort of feel like you've got a sense of, and we've had like a minute or two of that, and then switching gears.
And it's funny because that minute or two, I wonder if we could define that time. I think you have to spend about 3 minutes or 4 minutes on that exchange before you can decide to walk away.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
You really have to have that conversation. And I think it's like I'm always trying to break things down into steps. And so if you go to my LinkedIn page, Peter Hawkins, if you go to my LinkedIn page, I have 13 different steps of networking. And the first 5 are what to do on your LinkedIn page, to make it look, and the rest are actual examples of dialogue that you can use in order to connect with somebody. So in this particular thing, if we have a live example that you and I are at a meeting, and we have the overview of introduce yourself and ask the other person's name. We ask a follow-up question, what do you do specifically? We try to get a conversation going for 2 or 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. And by that point too, we can even say, it's lovely meeting you. I need to meet some more people, but let's stay in touch and all that kind of stuff. And you go to the next person. By being that explicit, I think actually helps because people are standing at those things waiting to be waiting to be met.
Yes.
And, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Let's talk a little bit about mindset there's 2 things I want to ask you about. One is mindset, which is before we go to the event, that's sort of following up on the questions that you started with. What's the mindset that you go in with? And then afterwards, how do you follow up? I want to sort of ask a little bit more around that. But the mindset is a lot of people tend to be a little bit slower to meet. So some people can't do that. I'm one of the people that can't really do that 3 to 4 minute thing because I generally want to get an energetic feeling for you. I'm not woo-woo, but I just want to get a sense of how are we connecting. So what's a good mindset and how do you sort of adjust for different personalities in those networking environments?
Well, I think that adjusting is something that takes practice.
Is again the skill.
Okay, it takes practice for sure, but I think it's a learned skill. I don't think it's an innate talent. Those outgoing people, sure, they can go ahead and talk to everybody, but are they listening? Are they really benefiting?
Yeah.
I think understanding. First of all, go in looking to meet people.
Yeah.
Okay, go in looking to meet people.
So you're going in with a bit of an attitude of volume, but not necessarily superficiality.
I think that's absolutely correct. I think that's a tough line to walk, for sure.
Yeah.
But what I do think happens is you get to go in and speak to somebody. You've walked in, like I truly have walked into many rooms and somebody said, "Hi, I'm Peter. I'm new here. What brings you here?"
Yeah.
Okay. Easy opening line.
Yep.
Not too difficult. I didn't go out and introduce myself as anything. And then I get some feedback here. Oh, I'm, here for the canapes. Okay, fantastic. Me too. Let's go over and get something. And we know right there that might die. But in the process, you can have a little conversation. Oh, a couple of tips. don't get it never eat anything two-handed. Okay?
Or food and drink.
Exactly. It's got to be one hand occupied, the other hand free.
And right hand free.
Yeah, exactly. Very important.
Yeah.
And always have your cards easy access when you have cards, and still have cards. Okay. I probably give out cards 30% of the time. The rest of the time is absolute connections on the phone.
Probably depends the industry that you're in as well.
True.
The
Exactly.
context. Yeah.
Then so the short answer to the first question is you really do have to ask the first question, and that's just being nice.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not. Don't go expecting to be judged.
Yeah.
And maybe they will judge you, but it's okay. Go to the next person.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Well, I mean, that says so much about the other person if they're judging you or being inappropriate. I don't mean that in a bad way, but then just next. Yeah.
Exactly. But then the next part of that, of course, is the follow-up. And the follow-up in situ, you're going to be asking questions, tell me more, I want to hear more, I'm not quite sure what that is. And it's funny, I asked a question online the other day, and a very naive question. And the person who answered it was so gracious about his answer. And then later when I Googled it, I thought, oh, you are such an idiot, Peter. But the fact is, the person was totally gracious and and so went out of their way not to.
And how many times do we all need that?
Yes,
we
exactly.
all...
Yeah. So, but then, okay, now let's talk about what happens next. So you've talked to somebody, you've enjoyed them, and you think there might be some connection, and I'm going to reach out to you later on LinkedIn. Is that okay? And we'll do a connection or whatever. Sure. Then you write the little note, but you read. You have to read stuff.
Yeah.
Don't just be sending the knee-jerk stuff. You're a human being. They're a human being.
Yeah.
So
true.
it is way better to get 5 good connections than to get 50 people who think you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay. So take the time to get it right.
Yeah.
And if you're selling, and something you said early on too about referrals, source of referrals, super important. If you're talking to some woman at an event, and then what you don't realize is she's going to go home and speak to her husband, and her husband's going to buy something from you. There you go. So you talk to everybody, and I talk to staff too.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're in their survival job.
Yeah.
The engineer who's making my drink, you say hello.
Yeah.
What's going on? How'd you end up here?
Yeah.
And have those
And
conversations.
those reputations, though, who was it that said, who's the Maya Angelou, people don't remember what you said, they remember how they made you feel.
Ah,
right.
so nice.
And that is so powerful because that does come back, both to haunt you, of course. Both
Well,
ways.
this particular person, Evangel Barros was his name, was super gracious. And
Nice.
I thought, wow, I'm impressed by that.
So in the follow-up piece, you talked a lot about sort of doing the follow-up, connect right away, send information right away. How do you stay in touch over the longer term, especially when we're dealing with people who are quite busy, which I know you are as well? How do you, do you write articles? Do you write posts? Do you write individualized? How do you stay in touch over the years?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I do all of the above. And what I do is whenever, now, for instance, I tell everybody, don't put your birthday on LinkedIn because I'll tell you, that's the greatest chance for me to delete you because there's such a crowd wishing you happy birthday. Oh, I can get rid of you. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't put your birthday. I don't put things that I can, you can find my identity and steal my identity.
Yes.
But what I do is I reach out to people all the time. I was just thinking about you and I thought I'd just drop you a line. Can you give me an update? What's going on now? I do it all the time. And the response I get 100% of the time was, I thought about doing that and I never did it. Okay? And I always do it when I think about it, including picking up the phone and giving somebody a shout. And it's funny, I had a conversation with a friend of mine last night who I hadn't talked to in 2 years or 3 years, and she's a writer in Saskatchewan, and she said, I felt we had lost touch, and I said, my phone number hasn't changed, your phone number hasn't changed, what part of us lost touch? And she goes, no, it's just the way I was kind of feeling about it. And I said, pick up the damn phone. Is your arm broken? What's going on?
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, just do it.
Yeah.
Everybody talks and they don't do. You got to do
Action.
it. You got to do it. And so networking is proactive. Okay, it's not passive. Don't let networking happen to you.
Yeah.
You
Wonderful.
do it.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Can I ask one more question?
Yep.
Sorry, I keep...
No, don't worry.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay.
We had a class here today, guys. So if you didn't hit the button, oh, come on, guys. We had just a class about networking here. Please, Kate, go ahead.
How have you seen people really leveraging their personalities and leveraging their backgrounds and different things, right? So Bruno's evolved from, I hope I'm saying this in a way that you find flattering.
That's fine.
You've evolved from being a dentist to being a newcomer to Canada to having this dental appliance that you were developing and still are, I think, to building this academy and doing mentoring, a range of things. So he's got a really interesting story, as many people do, right? How have you seen people really leverage who they are in a very, very constructive way, a meaningful way? Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's hard because if you do in certain way, you can, oh my God, the ego is so high. You're just like, come on, man, be humble. But at the same time, if you didn't tell it in a certain way, you're too humble and you're, no, what you accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a thin line between
the balance.
I think it's hard to find. So, and if you can spotlight that, it'll be great to me as well.
Everyone's online persona is much bigger, better, more successful than they really are. Okay? Everyone's that. So once you know that, I take everything else in stride. And I also don't judge you by what you did yesterday. I judge what you're doing now. Actually, I probably don't judge at all, to be honest with you. But we do like to see movement forward. If you are still saying the same lines you said 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and of course, the internet is brutal because it does come back 5 years ago. It'll tell you something, and I thought, oh my God, I'm still on Ozempic, and I still weigh the same, and stuff like that. So
doesn't work for everybody.
It doesn't work for everybody. But what I'm getting at is you do have to show that you have moved forward, and but I also think you can share too much. Okay, LinkedIn is about business. I actually don't want to see birthday stuff. I don't want to see puppy stuff. I don't want to see baby stuff. I don't want to see I'm a great dad. Now, my mom is 100 years old. And 100 years old, that's a hell of a milestone. So I wrote a piece, but it was a cultural piece about being 100 years old. Because I asked her what she remembered. And she remembered the Second World War. And she was, she remembers the Great Depression in 1929. But she also remembers hot pants. And she remembers, different TV shows and
the introduction of the TV.
In the introduction of the TV. But she also, she had something like 5 monarchs and 15 presidents and all this stuff that she'd gone through, and it became a really interesting thing about what she had seen. And I probably had more comments on that post than anything else. And what was so interesting, first of all, congratulations on her birthday, blah, 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 but also just look what she's seen.
Yeah.
Look what she has seen.
And I think what's really cool about what you just talked about is the way that you would write that on Facebook if you were doing a Facebook post.
Which would be different from
It would
LinkedIn.
be a totally different way that you're presenting that. And I think that's sort of something that all of us need to think about is there's nothing wrong with talking about our achievements, but how we talk about them and how we make them context appropriate. That's kind of, again, we're going back to the practice, the skill set, the mastery of doing that. And there are some people, like if you really listen to some people, they are masters at dropping names and dropping, I did this and I'm such a superstar, but they never use the words, I'm a superstar. And they do it so subtly and so smoothly, and you just walk away thinking this person is brilliant. Yeah, but you never got that ego feel. Yeah, so there's ways of doing it. I'm not the person, this is not something that I'm particularly good at, but I admire it when I see other people doing it.
Well, what I admire is complementary to that are the number of newcomers who are not newcomers now from all over the world who have built a community here and have given back mentoring. Absolutely. I have seen it over and over again, and I admire them tremendously. I think, wow, Canada is so lucky to have you.
Yeah.
I really am thrilled to see those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I also talk to a lot of young people who are forgetting that they are no longer students. They are now in the workforce.
Yeah.
And in that workforce, are you an executive? Are you doing your dream? Are you representing yourself the right way? And so I try to encourage them to use things in a way that will convey the message they want to convey. And I don't believe that a rocky command of English or making mistakes should hold you back. I think there are enough tools out there now that you can absolutely achieve your goals by sending the message you want to send about yourself to anyone, so that when you are networking, they understand who they're getting. And the person they're getting is who you want them to get.
Yes.
Awesome. Oh my God. Peter, I'm sorry, we have to wrap it up like the episode. I really would like to stay like for 2 hours. I know you don't have that time, but I want. But thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Really, I think we had like just a class about networking and everything related to that, and way more above and beyond about networking, to be honest. Question to you, last question before I go, and to be very quickly, to summarize, how powerful is networking, like in your life that you had experience before? What do you say?
Okay, it is the only way to achieve a goal in this world is networking. Okay, you cannot do it by yourself. You must do it by making a connection and having that connection leveraged so that you can achieve your goals. You cannot do it by yourself.
I love that. That is so true.
Any final words?
No. What I'm going to do is ask a question. Can
Yes.
you, what's your LinkedIn profile and where do
I'm
people
gonna ask
find that 15-point list?
Sure. It's Peter Hawkins on LinkedIn. That's and I'm the co-owner of MELLOHAWK Logistics. I'm the co-chair of the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce. And there's an article with a photograph of a blue sky and some clouds, and it is essentially 15 tips on how to. Really,
Is it in your about page or is it a post?
It's the featured article.
The featured article.
It's the featured article right on the front of the page, and not every point is needed for everybody. It takes 15 minutes to read. So if you don't have time to read that, then you don't have time to be successful.
That's yes. And
I think that's a mic drop moment there.
But
please don't drop that.
no.
How can people find you, Katie?
Katarina von Madel on LinkedIn. And I think you'll probably put a link for both of our LinkedIns.
Sure. Yeah. So, guys, if you found value in this episode, of course, you can follow us on your social media as well. I'm going to drop here below like all the social media so you can find us here. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And I hope you now understand how to do networking, because if you didn't understand from this episode,
that was a masterclass.
That was a masterclass.
Wow, so nice.
Thank you so much. I see you in the next episode.